Hey, y'all. Today, of course, it's Matt Rogers on the Honorable Mention podcast. We have Tom Kelly from 94 WIP, which is the flagship station of both the Eagles and the Phillies. Very exciting, best time of the year, really. Tom made some time for us. Off the top, do you agree with me that this Phils team is just a more talented team than the 2022 Phillies?
Well, I don't know if they're more talented, Matt. I don't know if that's the way I describe it, but I think they're more complete. I think when you look at this team, I think the lineup's deeper. I think the defense is certainly better when you look at the, fact that the outfield is more complete. You have the ability to put in Rojas and Pache and Brandon Marsh and get Kyle Schwarber off the field. I think this team misses Hoskins' power, but he was a liability at first base. You get Bryce there. I think that makes your defense a lot better. So I think they're more complete. I do think pitching-wise, they're probably not quite as good, definitely in the bullpen. The starting rotation, Nola's been a little more inconsistent than last year, but ultimately I do think they're a deeper team is probably how I'd look at it.
Yeah, on the offensive side, I mean, on the batting lineup, I have said this to different people. I feel like every night they throw in different people, like you said, Marsh, Pache, and others. They've got, 6 guys who can actually really hurt you. I'm including like a Stott, Schwarber, Castellanos now batting 7th. I really feel like I think we may have plans to use Lorenzen and Walker more so in the pen when it comes down to it. And so I kind of hopeful from that perspective, because I am worried. I don't want to see, with all due respect, I don't want to see Mr. Soto, Gregory Soto in the playoffs, but I know I will.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Lorenzen and Walker, to me, aren't really options. I mean, Lorenzen, I don't think is an option in the playoffs. He hasn't pitched well really since the no-hitter. Walker, I think, is really a starter. He's struggled big time. So I think, you're looking at Alvarado and Hoffman, and they're the 2 guys that Rob Thompson really trusts. Aside from that, there are a lot of dart throws. I mean, you mentioned Soto. I mean, Soto is really inconsistent. Sometimes he looks great. Other times, he's really frustrating. But I think he's going to need to pitch big innings, and I think Ranger Suarez is going to be interesting as well. And as they go into this wild card series here, I think the plan is for Ranger to start Game 3, but I don't think you can hold him out in case that's the scenario here. You have Christopher Sanchez, and I think if you feel like you need to use Ranger Suarez Game 1 or Game 2, you really got to do that because you don't have a ton of reliable options.
And I trust Christopher Sanchez. I don't have a problem giving him the ball. That's why I feel like we have four guys who I'm not. Ranger has a tough game. Nola has a good game. Then we're just not a team that's going to make it back to the World Series if these guys don't step up and pitch well when as Red October begins.
Yeah, they're going to need guys to step up, and there are going to be a couple guys in the bullpen, and I don't know who exactly they're going to be, which is the issue, but they're going to need a couple of those guys to step up. Whether it's Soto, Kimbrel, I don't feel very good about right now. Really hasn't pitched very well since the break.
Yeah.
So they're going to need a few of those other guys to step up. I mean, Alvarado and Hoffman, you feel good about, but aside from those guys, everybody else is kind of a question mark.
The Kerkering, you feeling? How are you feeling? I guess early returns. We don't have too much data on him yet.
Yeah, I mean, he's looked really good, but he's only pitched in 2 games, and that's really difficult to rely on as you head into a playoff situation. And obviously the game tonight gets rained out, but I think it's important for Kerkering to pitch both of the next 2 days. I think he needs to pitch Saturday. He needs to pitch Sunday because you need to know if you can use him on multiple days. And he needs as much experience as he can get. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's an option, but I don't think he's a guy that you can just pencil in and count on pitching big innings for you.
he's like a secret weapon, but at a certain point, you don't want to keep too much of the secrets, away from yourself as well. I mean, we got to know if this guy can go at this point in the season. If other teams know that he's an option for us at this point, it doesn't really matter. We're playing baseball on Tuesday. So
yeah, I mean, he's only pitched in 2 games, so that's not really enough to go off of.
That's right. I totally agree with you. Since we're already here, do you trust Nola to step up in October?
I'll say this about Nola. His last 2 outings have been encouraging. There's no doubt about that. Tuesday night, he pitched great. His previous start in Atlanta, obviously things are a little different if Ozzie Albies' ball stays fair, but he pitched really well. The problem with Nola this year is that he struggled to be consistent. Like, he's had really good outings. You go back to, Tampa Bay on July 4th, he pitched great. He's had moments throughout the course of the season where he's pitched really well. The problem's been consistency. So he's going to need to put it together and be consistent. And let's face it, if this team's going to win a World Series, they're going to need Aaron Nola to step up. It's really that simple.
My God, yes.
There's really no way they can make a deep run without Nola doing that.
That's right. Wheeler has been great. I'm not really worried about Wheeler whatsoever.
Yeah, he got off to a little bit of a slow start, but Wheeler's really turned it around. And, you can't overstate how important Nola is. He's going to be a really huge X factor for this team in the playoffs. I think
he's Nola X factor. That's right.
I think he's the most important Philly going into this playoff run. I just think he's kind of the biggest question mark, but he's the biggest variable. Like, if he is great, they can win the World Series. If he's not great, they're going to struggle to even win in the first round. It's kind of crazy, but I do think he makes that big of a difference.
Game 2. So obviously he wouldn't win wild card, or there's not actually an award for wild card round, but if you were to award one, it would probably be an offensive player. Who will that player be for the Phillies?
I mean, you'd have a hard time going with anybody except Bryce Harper. I mean, this is his time of year. He steps up in big spots, and to me, that's been probably the most encouraging thing over the last few months of the season, really, is the fact that Bryce has gotten his power back. He came back and he was being productive. Like, he was still a good hitter, but, they need his power, especially after losing a guy like Hoskins. Other than Schwarber, you just don't have somebody who can reliably give you that power. Like, Castellanos will give it to you in spurts, but there's a reason why he was moved down in the order, as you mentioned. Like, he's not a guy who you can rely on that night in, night out. But Bryce over the last couple months has been phenomenal, and I think this is, he's one of those athletes. It's kind of a rare breed that, like,
that's right.
He shines brightest when the moments are the biggest, and hopefully that's going to happen again like it did last year.
It's like a shot of adrenaline for him, and especially for these fans, they go wild over it. And if they're in synergy, it's just crazy. He's cold-blooded. The guy comes up with big hits and big dingers. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I mean, you can't hit a bigger home run than he hit in the playoffs last year. It was incredible, and you feel good about whenever he comes to the plate in those situations.
You're definitely in a pitch around situation if you can, but with the Phils lineup, the way they've been able to construct this thing, it's since we really locked down Real Muto, it's been about loading this lineup with this team with folks in the lineup who don't allow you to pitch around Harper too much without paying for it.
Yeah, and that's to me what is interesting about this team offensively comparatively to last year. Like, last year they may have had more punch, as I mentioned a couple times now with Hoskins, but this year you have a better Bryson Stott. You have a better Alec Boehm. You have a better, Brandon Marsh and those guys in the outfield. So I just think
Rojas.
There are like less easy outs in this lineup. And I think that's really the biggest difference on the positive side is, you're going to have to earn every out you get against this lineup, especially now that you got Trey Turner going a little bit.
And you got Sosa hitting near, I think, 260-ish now. I mean, that's nice for Sosa. You don't really need that. That's he's got a little gravy on those potatoes, I must say, if he's hitting 260 with power sometimes.
Yeah, and he's going to be a nice guy to have, coming off your bench. And I struggle to see where he would get starts in the playoffs this year,
No. Yeah.
especially because Bryce will be at first and Bohm will be at third. But, as a guy late in games, maybe defensive replacement for Bohm over there at
Absolutely.
third, you can
Mhm.
put him in and not really worry about the fact that, you can still account for the fact that he might be able to get you a big hit if you need him to, if he does come to the plate.
So far, I think he's, every, great team has a guy like this who's not going to be in the lineup day to day, but you need to be able to call on him. It's a great piece to have. So, um, what are your thoughts on the Commanders? They have a great defensive line off the top, talking about the Birds in the Commanders game. With all respect to the Commanders, they built a hell of a defensive line, and they got Chase Young coming back. But I will say the Eagles' offensive line looks the returns on what we've seen over the course of the last 20 NFL football games that the Eagles have played in is this offensive line is ridiculous. Do you expect more of the same even against this line this week?
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Commanders, and I don't think this is too much of a threat. Now, the NFL's just been kind of weird this year. There haven't been a ton of good games, and a lot of the good teams have struggled with inferior competition. So, I mean, I think that could happen maybe early on in the game where it's close, but I thought that was going to happen last week, and the Eagles blew the Bucks out. So, I'm not too worried about it. In the end, I just think the Eagles are the better team, and typically up front, that offensive line will dominate pretty much anybody, and I kind of see it the same way.
I do too. I don't really have much to say on that one because I totally feel like we're going to whoop their asses. But let's just keep on moving. So Josh Jobe is excelling on the outside, but from what I saw last week, I haven't liked what I've seen so much from Bradbury in the slot. Are you seeing the same thing, or do you think that Bradbury is somebody who can excel in that position throughout the entirety of the season?
Well, honestly, I probably have to watch it a little more. Like I was watching on Monday night, but I didn't get a chance to watch the game back yet, as I
Hmm.
usually like to do. Um,
Hmm.
I thought Bradbury was okay. Like nothing
Okay,
really stood out to me that
that's right.
was overly concerning, and I just think he's a good enough player that he'll figure it out. And it's obviously different than playing on the outside. Um,
Yeah.
but I think it's a really a testament to the Eagles front office that, you lose Avonte Maddox, and that's a huge loss. I mean, he's a really good player. He's one of the best in the league doing what he does, playing that slot corner spot. But, to have a guy like Joby can play on the outside, to, be able to have Bradbury be a guy with the versatility to move inside. I think they'll figure it out. There might be some growing pains, but in the end, I think they'll be all right, and I think Bradbury will be okay in that role.
I hope so. I hope so. Uh, do you expect to see some Penny this week? Of course, if you talk Eagles this week, you just Google, type in Google, and if you're listening to this in your phone, and it'll be discussion of this tush push, this idea that QB sneaks now, legal QB sneaks are this big scandal.
Mhm.
Do you think they implement some Penny to kind of try to just say, hey, we can do whatever we want to you guys? Or are they just more the same?
Yeah, I think it's just more of the same, and I hope they do it. Like, I love when they run that play. I love how much it annoys people. There's nothing illegal about it. So, I
No.
mean, Jack Del Rio, the Washington's defensive coordinator, is coming out crying about it yesterday. And I love when the Eagles do it. So I don't want them to change anything. I want them to run this play more. Like, I would love
Yes.
to see them do it, as much as possible. And I loved last week where they get down to the 2-yard line and it's 3rd and goal. And they know, like, okay, well, we're probably not going to get in here, but we're going to get 1.5 yards. And then we're just going to
Yep.
get it on 4th down. So, I mean, if teams don't like it, like, find a way to stop it. I don't know what else to say about it, but there's nothing wrong with the Eagles doing it. I don't know why this is such an issue week to week. And I think it's hilarious, quite honestly.
Do you think the guys, that are going to be wearing jerseys and helmets, do you think that that's how they feel about it? Or you think that they're using that as a little motivation?
I mean, I think they probably think it's funny too. I mean, like if you just think about it from their perspective, like basically it's people and analysts and even opposing teams' coaches saying, "Oh, well, they're so good at this thing, it's unfair, and they should change the rule." So I think Jason Kelsey's talked about how much he loves doing it, and I think they probably get a kick out of it, and keep doing it. As far as Rashad Penny goes, I think he's a fourth running back. Like, I don't think he's a guy the Eagles really are worried about implementing into their system here. But yeah, just keep doing it. If it works in short yardage, there's no reason to change it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Hey, that play, you guys can't do that play because you score on that play every time. Like, if they said, people said that in any sport.
Right. It's like, okay, well, we'll keep doing it. It's basically the equivalent to somebody say, well, Patrick Mahomes is so good at throwing the ball, the Chiefs shouldn't be allowed to throw the ball over 20 yards. It's stupid.
That's right.
It's crazy.
It's like the Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul. They made the dunking illegal.
Yeah,
it was stupid.
It's
ridiculous.
It really is, and I can't believe that this has become like a weekly thing where people are complaining about it. I really can't. It is crazy conversation.
It's fun. It's funny from an Eagles fan. For everybody who listens to the show is an Eagles fan, but from the folks who are, it's like Eagles fans are used to being, that's why the underdog thing took hold so much. You used to being kind of the guy, the somebody who's not supposed to be there, but is there nonetheless. Mm-hmm. And now we're getting complained about, you guys are too good, basically, to your point.
Right. Right. So
it's a weird position for us to be in.
Yeah. And it's so dumb. And I love when the Eagles run that play. It's it's my favorite thing that they do, and I hope they keep doing it.
Beautiful. Well, how much of that will they be doing this Sunday? Give us a score prediction.
I'm going to say 31-24 Eagles. I think it's a little closer than expected, as I said. They could struggle early, but in the end, they win this game going away. I wouldn't be surprised to see them win it by more. Just been a weird year in the league. Like, I feel like the game quality this season, and who knows, maybe we say this every year, but I feel like it's been really bad. Like, in terms of like all these games, like they've been sloppy. They haven't been very entertaining. So I could see the Eagles maybe struggling a little bit, but in the end, they're just better than Washington. And I'd be surprised if they're not 6-0, Matt. You look at it, they got Washington, then the Rams, then the Jets. I don't see them losing any of those games, and I think they're 6-0 going into that Miami game. So that'd be a hell of a way to get it started if that ends up being the case.
The league is turning into a race, and you have to really right now. If the Eagles could take a separate, thought pattern and say, okay, we're just going to get our wins. But right now, what I'm kind of seeing is people are trying to pour it on a little bit and get style points. So that's the only difference. If the Eagles are anything less than 5-1 after, through 6, that would be a disappointing. If people are disappointed at 3-0.
Yeah. I think they've been fine. The first 2 games, they're a little sporadic offensively, but I've actually been impressed by what Brian Johnson's done, kind of figuring things out as they go along here. And I thought things looked a lot better last week. So I'm really encouraged by this start. The fact that you're not playing your best and you're 3-0, I think is a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So after your conversation, before I let you go, I was listening to you on WIP. You guys should check him out. He's on there all the time. I think Saturday afternoons for sure. And you were talking with the guys about
I'm not on tomorrow now because the Phillies are playing a doubleheader. So I was supposed to be on with Al Morgani. Unfortunately, we won't be on tomorrow afternoon now.
Oh, those darn Phils.
Yeah.
Tom and the guys were talking about, washing their hands. And I was surprised about the number of guys who were just like, no, I don't do it every time. What do you think? Have you given that more thought? Do you think most guys, in your heart of heart, do you think most guys wash their hands every time?
Oh, I would be disgusted if people don't.
I am disgusted that the conversation was going on.
And I was working with John Marks that day, and I love John. He's a great guy. But I was repulsed by the fact that he said he will fake washing his hands and doesn't believe people wash their hands every time they go to the bathroom. I mean,
you were a fraud for saying that you do.
Yeah, I mean, which I don't. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I wash my hands every time I go to the bathroom. You can call me a germaphobe, I guess. I don't think that qualifies as being a germaphobe, but
right.
You know,
it's like
I don't know. I don't think it's a hot take to wash your hands every time you go to the bathroom. I think that's just, sanitary behavior, to be honest.
Again, us just agreeing. I mean, I was shocked by it. I thought it was hilarious, but also pretty disgusting. But thanks so much for finding time to come on. You guys can follow him at Tommy Kelly 44 and just check out WIP. You can listen on the Odyssey app, and see you again soon.
Well, thanks, Matt. I really appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.